What's up, guys? I'm SaltEMike, and this is your Star Citizen Week in Review for June 22nd, 2026. 4.8.2 launched really poorly. It's becoming a theme at this point. The entirety of SCL was basically addressing those issues, and we actually have Squadron 42 news. Big deal. All that and more on today's Week in Review. And as always, if this is your first week in review, this is where I take all of the official Star Citizen news each week, put it into one video, and share some of my opinions about it. I also live stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/SaltEMike. Love when you guys stop by. But yeah, we have a lot to dive into this week. So before we do, let me share with you today's sponsor. Thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring today's video. NordVPN isn't just a VPN. It upgrades your online protection with their all-in-one digital security app for your computer and mobile devices. Now, I got to start out with the fact that the NordVPN app, the VPN is still a core feature and it's not going anywhere. So you get to watch your paid subscriptions from your home country's platforms when you're abroad. You can browse safely, but not significantly slower because it's the fastest VPN on the planet. And of course, it's available on all major platforms. So you can use it on your phone, tablet, or even your TV. But today, I want to talk more about what comes with the app. And that is their all-in-one security that aims to stop attacks before they start. The internet is getting more and more scary, dangerous, and filled with people, sites, and ways that want to cause harm to you. And I want more protection. So the feature that excites me the most is their next-gen antivirus. It does a lot for scams, phishing, malware, and online trackers. But the biggest benefit I've seen since installing NordVPN on my phone is call protection. It automatically flags potential scam calls and blocks detected scammers and telemarketers. And man, my life has been more quiet lately. Before NordVPN, I was getting 10 scam calls a day, minimum. Today, I haven't seen one. You can also check files, links, and text to analyze if they are a scam. If you have older parents or family members, you really need to teach them to use something just like this. Even some of these texts are kind of getting slick lately, so even for me, it's better to be safe than sorry. NordVPN has a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try out NordVPN for yourself. If you are unsatisfied with their all-in-one digital security app, they'll refund you within 30 days. So if you want to upgrade your online protection with NordVPN's all-in-one security app, get an exclusive deal on NordVPN and 4 months extra using my link at nordvpn.com/saltemike. And again, it's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee at nordvpn.com/saltemike. And with all that out of the way, let's get into our first segment, Patch Notes Updates. All right, we start out on Monday where we had an instancing tech preview. So again, this was a tech preview, not 4.9 Evo. The goal of this test was simply to test instancing. I had hockey, the game that night, so I missed the test, but I heard it was pretty unstable, which is not a surprise with new tech. Oh, and they did a small update to the tech preview on Wednesday to deal with AI and instance merging as well. The main news that actually came out of the test was like a weird set of quantum fuel amounts that basically halved everyone's QT fuel on nearly every ship, but it's hard to tell if this is something to pay attention to because it's a tech preview, right? Then on Wednesday, we had 4.8.2 releasing, and we had some downtime to bring that online, which should have been a simple release. All they were adding was 2 ships. More importantly, a number of bug fixes. Nothing else really. They also kind of turned on the defend missions, I believe. This message was kind of just like a copy paste from the 4.8.1 notes. Correct me if I'm wrong there, guys, because the days, I don't know, look at me. The days are like all melting together. But it ended up being a disaster as the Idris was putting servers in a crash loop. There was something that was checked in. We heard about this on SCL, but I will not be clipping that out of SCL. So they had to disable the Idris for a short time and fix it. And then on Friday, now we had a proper 4.9 Evocati. But this was an interesting Evocati, at least from a notes perspective. The testing feedback was extremely small. We'll touch on my thoughts about that in video updates because Jared does tell us what might be going on here. But instancing was not a part of this test, but that's just my understanding as well. I did not play this patch either. Honestly, kind of needed a Star Citizen break and played other games this week. Sue me, guys. sue me. But it is my understanding that this patch had the same QT fuel changes from the tech preview. So possibly a weird choice going on there, because you're not going to be able to get across Pyro very easily with many ships if those changes stay. And of course, in more typical first Evo fashion, there's a long list of bug fixes, all potential, of course. Friday, we also had a hotfix. This one's short. They just dealt with 3 crashes that people were having, and like most hotfixes, they will slowly be added as they wait for servers to go down and replace them. So that was our patches this week, and so far, yeah, lots of 4.9 stuff that's being a little bit weird, and then trying to fix the mess that is 4.8. But again, we'll touch on more about that in a little bit. So let's get to roadmap updates. And for roadmap roundup, we'll start out with 4.8 ships. This is the obvious one where they added the 2 GATAC ships to the 4.8 cycle, and then we move on to item recovery. And this, as many of you know, is my least favorite subject or idea that CIG has had, but there isn't much detail here. All we know is we'll see more updates to item recovery, but no really showing how, besides one interesting change. They want to give free recovery for ships that get messed up beyond your control, but I feel like that's in 4.8.1 or 2 already. I remember seeing that in notes somewhere. Then we get Ninetales updates. This one's cool. With Siege of Orison in 4.9, they're taking the Ninetales and updating their armor quite a bit. That middle armor, which appears to be heavy because the right is super heavy, is my favorite. I love that they're going down this kind of different like style, and it will do a small part to make the Ninetales feel different from other factions. Then we're getting a new gun. This is the Bearing CQ7 bullpup rifle. It's meant to be for close quarters fighting, but if you look at the image, at least it's in the image, it's saying it's not full auto. It has a little mode switch that says burst or semi. We have plenty of burst weapons, and they're all okay, but it's my understanding that the full auto weapons are the meta still, most of them. And then next is Ordnance Cargo Holder. This one's interesting and a little bit weird. Now when we place missiles or torps or bombs down, they'll just auto-create a frame around them to show the actual boundaries of weapons snapping, because yeah, these used to float on top of each other and look really weird. Obviously, it makes sense to make this change so things don't look weird, but it's also odd to me because I expected them to, have like a rack for us to place these things on. Then new hair. Lastly, there's a few new hairstyles coming. One of them is really getting close to the mess on top of my head, although I do really need a haircut. But I might have to update my character soon. That was roadmap updates. Again, the next roadmap update is probably going to be the most critical one. But with that said, let's move into video updates for basically how we hear why. And yes, we start out with the behind the ships with the GATAC Tyilui. So this is a bit of a surprise because they called the ship industrial in the lead up to its release, but we hear what it actually ends up being in this clip.
It is our first dedicated alien snub fighter carrier.
We have 2 categories within our snub division of ships. We have snub fighters and snub crafts. This is really designed for the former, the snub fighters. And they need a carrier because they don't have quantum drive. So they have a very limited range and require a larger ship to get them where the action is. And whilst the Tyilui may visually share some elements with the Railen, it is a new ship chassis.
The real noticeable change on the rear of the vehicle is the large hangar door. And that really reveals the large hangar opening, which also has an air shield across the rear.
Okay, so first off, that description is so silly. The first dedicated alien snub fighter carrier just sounds so stupid, but yeah, and just like, who asked for this, right? Like, you have run out of ideas, but no denying it's also kind of cool. I'm just not seeing the point. Snub fighters are not really super effective in the current experience, but if they are, then the ship is pretty neat, right? And then they give us some stats about the rear cargo area.
The Tyilui holds 4 snubs in its rear section, as well as 96 SU of cargo space.
And the purpose of this cargo is to enable players to use the rearm, repair, refuel mechanics.
Yeah, when they talk about the cargo for repairing and such. I think it makes the idea of the ship on paper really cool. It feels really like kind of self-sufficient, but again, snubs, right? Just kind of getting in the way there. And lastly, they explain what is really different about the ship.
It's a very different environment to what we're used to on a lot of our human manufactured ships.
The Xi'an are the masters of sort of gravity and magnets. So the rear section of the Tyilui is its centerpiece. Not only does it hold the 4 snub bays, it does it in a sort of 360-degree environment, allowing you to sort of get in, and you can walk the whole way around the interior of the ship to get to your landing pad.
Okay, so that track is super cool, but not only this, the rear is a 0G environment. So even ships that don't fit on the pads, apparently, I don't own this one and I haven't tested yet, so I need you guys to help kind of confirm this one for me. You can just have them float there and you can EVA to those ships. So I kind of want to do a swarm of RSI Salvation salvagers and then use that 96 SU of cargo to deal with the cargo space that the Salvations don't have. So I feel like that would be kind of fun and interesting. So that was the behind the ships, and the SCL is next, and that was a tech talk with Benoit and Jens. I have to start out with the fact that most of this episode was very technical, or Jared just babbling on so much about, oh, this is the best year of Star Citizen ever again, like all that stuff. So I skipped a lot of it. Link will be in the description. So I pulled a few things out of what I thought would be relevant for you guys. And the first question was about desync, since the Benoit post hasn't been made yet. So he touches on it a little bit here.
What we know about right now is that there are some meshes. When I say meshes, I mean a dedicated game server inside a shard that are running way below FPS spec that we want, right? And so we don't have a handle just yet about what is actually causing it. We do have performance captures, and we're tracking at least 6 to 8 very specific optimizations that need to happen. One of them is within the area component, which is used all over the engine. Area and zone component, they kind of go in hand, but again, because we're pushing more content, right? The hierarchy trees of the game world is much bigger. So there's more areas, more zones, more subdivision, more. There are some areas of that where if you add a lot of entities in those that enter or exit these areas, there's, the engine provides listeners to track entities entering areas or leaving areas or zones changing, right? And obviously there's concurrency constructs around this to prevent one thread from accessing another thread, right? And so just keeping it simple without diving too much into the low level, which we will probably in some of our desync areas. But there's lock contention in the area component at the moment. In some places, there's lock contention in some areas of the game. Well, I literally mean area, like, if there's many entities in this spot, because of the way it's configured, we're seeing like basically FPS drops in those areas. And so we're tracking about, like I said, 6 to 8 major optimizations that we're trying to get in our Hotfix channel, right, to try to get this FPS back up to the spec that we want, which is above 20, across the
server FPS.
Server FPS, correct.
Somebody's going to take that clip and say, "Oh no, Star Citizen's only looking for 20 FPS in gameplay and whatnot."
No. And it's important to note that, like, when a server is running low FPS, it doesn't mean that it will create desync, but especially when you're interacting with entities that are simulated on that DGS, AI characters, NPCs, then you're gonna perceive desync because the source is slow at creating its output, and the traffic goes from your game client to the replication node, replication node to game server. Now, if game server is running slow, at the beginning of the frame, he's taking the state from the game, from the network to the game and applying it. At the end of it, he's applying the changes back to the network, right? If that loop is slow, then your client's going to predict something, and then that prediction will get corrected the next frame, and that will create a rubber band, right? And so that's the gist of why there's desync in general.
Why does the client have to predict?
Because if he doesn't predict, then you're going to be at the tick of the server, and you'll see like tick,
even if it was running.
Okay, first off, this post is going to be made eventually. They talked about that he's working on it, and it'll come, and it'll be very technical and all that. But cool, they have some ideas about what they want to try to do to solve it. Actions here matter, so looking forward to seeing what improves, if anything at all. And then I found the next one to be really interesting, this next clip.
The way we've architected Star Citizen, even though it's an MMO, we operate it from an ops side of things like a match-made game, right? When you come in and you pick a shard or you shard hop to one of your friends, you're just getting one of the shards that's currently running, right? And the process of bringing your character and unstowing it into the shard and then allowing you to unstow items from your inventory down into the shard and putting it back up there and getting out of there, right? Is kind of our attempt at not applying a classic MMO setup, server setup to Star Citizen, where you would create your character on a server, which then needs to run at all times, that when it's low population, we need to consolidate, that we need to character transfer or character rename, and this typical kind of MMO grid system, right? It's a company desire to not do that pattern and to instead keep it fluid like it is now.
So at first when I heard this, I was concerned. It being like the company desire to not work like other MMO servers, like WoW, for example, could be perceived as a mistake, probably. But this to me looks like an attempt for them to try and fake, and I don't consider faking here a negative word, really large servers where you have no chance to see people on another shard, but you're technically going to be playing with them. So like we'll be impacting each other, but not necessarily seeing each other. I don't know how I feel about that, but they obviously do have to make concessions, because the idea of Star Citizen and one global shard, which was the initial pitch from CR, is not possible. It doesn't really feel like it, at least. And then Jared kind of drops something potentially exciting.
There's this thing they don't really talk about in MMO so much. It's concurrency and daily active users. Concurrency is how many people you have online at any given time. And daily average users is how many individual people come in and interact with your game during the day. Normally, these numbers are not revealed publicly. It's just if you go and you search for World of Warcraft DAU and whatnot or whatever, you're not going to find them. You're going to find a bunch of estimates and stuff. One of the things that we're discussing internally right now is actually exposing that.
So just to clarify here, in my experience, quite a few MMOs do let us know what the populations are on their servers nowadays. And I think he's addressing this because people have tried to reverse engineer and figure out how many people are playing Star Citizen at any given time. I think he's really stuck on WoW and his history with MMOs being maybe potentially a little bit smaller or something, I don't know, or older before they could do stuff like this, and we're doing stuff like this. And then Jared proceeded to tell us later, I'm not clipping this part out because it was so long and ridiculous, just percentage numbers from 2024 to today based on month, with zero reference of how many players played in 2024 outside of a Roberts letter potentially. So it felt really weird, unnecessary, and just very corpo serving of like, hey, everything is great, guys. We know you guys are not enjoying the experience you're having, but we're enjoying how much money we're making, is like kind of what it was. Just so goofy and weird. And like these big companies focusing on metrics like these is really dangerous, because it usually is used as an excuse for them to ignore your feedback, right? Then the next clip is probably the most important of the entire episode.
So after the release of 4.8.0, we reassessed our bug prioritization process. We're into the bug phase of the show here. Instead of having priority determined by the development team and validated by QA, we handed over the selection, some elements of the selection and prioritization in certain categories of bugs to the player experience team. The player experience team is internally always pushing and advocating for issues that players are most impacted by. So this should, in theory, address a perceived disconnect between us as developers fixing a lot of issues and players feeling like little has improved. Now, that's not to say that the priorities in the past were detached from what players reported on Issue Council, Spectrum, or Reddit, but clearly things weren't working as well as they could have been. With 4.9, we will work through a newly refined list of issues affecting instance hangars, freight elevators, quantum travel, star map, inventory, docking, exploits, login flow, and issues that falsely destroy your ships and more. On top of that, we're tracking a longer list of quality of life issues with new players report regularly. Many veterans know a lot of convoluted workarounds to some of these issues, but really, they shouldn't have to deal with those to begin with. And because we want to ensure Star Citizen is as new player friendly as it can be, we're tackling a wider range of common problems that impact this first hour or so of any session. So in addition to the things we're going to go on, there's a new effort about things that specifically affect the very first hour. There are about 80 issues remaining on our priority list. And while we will tackle a lot of them for 4.9, we want to avoid just playing whack-a-mole with some of those bugs. Fixing a lot of bugs is not the same thing as fixing the root causes behind the symptoms that appear as bugs. For instance, freight elevators have seen around 70 or 80 bug fixes this summer, but due to the reactive nature of that endeavor, players don't feel like it's nearly as stable or reliable as it should be. Now, freight elevators that have a lot of interactions with other systems will need to be made reliable, but they're a core gameplay mechanic and must be stable at all times. I misread that sentence, but I'm going to keep going. On the flip side, we had a similar situation with Transit in 2024 and early 2025 where we fixed a lot of bugs that didn't seem to make a difference. We then invested that time into building better debugging tools and self-repair flows, this is self-healing I mentioned before, and yielded a much more stable system, even though on paper, way fewer bugs were actually fixed. We want to repeat this methodical approach with other systems like freight elevators, hangars, and more. For that reason, we don't expect everything to be magically solved for 4.90, and I wouldn't read it if he did. We will continue this initiative beyond that into 4.10 and beyond, but we're more confident that in this new the same approach that we use for Transit to bring these systems in line with the scale and complexity requirements that Star Citizen has in 2026.
This was written by Phil and is essentially the exact opposite of what I just said. The producer for Star Citizen, because they're making these changes to actually listen to our feedback, hopefully. So that's really awesome. Priority fixes for players that actually matter, and it's all being done by the player experience team, who I've given a lot of heat to over the years, but not actually giving it to them, giving it to the company for not listening to them. Because I've interacted with people who work in that department for a really long time, and yeah, the interactions were always, we know these are problems. We can't do anything about it. Now they can. Hopefully, we'll see how this plays out. Fingers crossed here, but seems like a good initiative. And this last one is not looking so good.
I will say, all of this talk right now is meaningless without action. It is. We've been on this cadence. If you follow the cadence of patches this year, you should know that 4.9 is scheduled for the middle of July. It was the end of January and the end of March, and then in May we switched to the middle. The next one is June. It follows the same cadence as last year. We just had ones in the middle. It's like the cadence has been in place for 18 months now. The next patch is scheduled for the middle of July. I don't have specific answers for you yet, but I know there are conversations going on about whether that should happen or not. Whether 4.9 goes ahead as planned, but we remove content from it. Whether we keep the content in and we push that release back further to give it more time to address. The only thing I can confidently comment on right now is that the people in this room and the other big decision makers that are having this conversation right now do not want a repeat. of what just happened.
So combine what was said here with what we saw in the first Evo patch, and yeah, maybe that decision was already made and Jared was trying to let us down softly here. I think it's great, to be honest. Take a patch, do some fixes, instead of adding more instability with potentially things like instancing. We don't know if this is true yet or what's actually happening. We have one Evo, so it's not the sky is falling, right? But Jared does seem to be preparing us for something. And yeah, in the end, the next roadmap update is going to be critical. And with that, that is our video updates. Lots of long stuff there. Do apologize. Let's move on to other updates. All right, and of course, we start out with a sneak peek, and this one is very familiar. It's a sneak peek of something planned for 4.9, as we heard in SCL. That's a big maybe now, but it's something we've already played before. So yeah, we'll have to see. It's Siege of Orison, which is shown in this image. If we get this, I'm looking forward to seeing it. If it'll be like kind of fun in an instance environment, because it absolutely was not when it wasn't instanced, and it felt like that's what it needed. So we'll see how this plays out. Then Alien Week, and we'll start out with the Alien Week page. Not a ton here. Alien Week is just, you know, to sell a few ships and a lot of paints and things like that you could see at the bottom. But there is, of course, a community contest, which is broad, just like do alien things and you'll win ships. And this next one is my favorite, Alien Armada. Play Arena Commander, which many of us know is kind of just ignored now by the company, for the right to pledge for the Asperia Glaive, for the right to pledge. Holy man, play the game for the right to buy something is one of the most cooked ideas this company's ever done, and they keep doing it. Can we stop, please? This is so ridiculous. Let's move on to the Railen sale, where the sale page went up. And of course, you get all the lore stuff, and then the paints are just kind of whatever. Big thing here is you might have to buy 2 paints if you want to use it with the Tyilui. And the main news here is the price, because it was $225 in concept, but it's $360 now for new money and $400 if you use any store credit. Very big hike. The alien tax is real. And then the Tyilui sale. So we already covered this one at length with Behind the Ships episode, but we get to see the actual sale page linked in the description. Again, if you want to see it in full, but it's the in-lore goofy stuff again. And yeah, then paints. They're okay. And again, if you're into the ship, I guess they're different enough from one another. And these paints are like the same as the Railen. But yeah, you might have to buy one for each. What you might not like is the price. $385 for new money. And for a ship that just holds snubs, and $425 if you use store credit. So yeah, that's a bit much. And then the thing you've probably been waiting to hear, and this is the Squadron 42 news. This is a really big deal. Some creators and other community members were emailed and started posting on social media that they were invited to visit Manchester studio on their dime. I think that's important because none of your money is being spent to fly these people out there to experience Squadron 42 for the first time. It's basically kind of replacing CitizenCon. It's a 3-day event from October 9th to the 11th. This is a huge thing because it's literally the start of marketing now for Squadron, right? We're wondering when they were going to speak up. And this is certainly them speaking up to the entire community, not just the people invited, that they are ready to start ramping things up. Now, no, I was not involved. I wasn't expecting to be invited at all to something like this. I posted a video about it. Most people assumed I was super upset for not being picked, and that's just not really the case. Feel free to watch it if you want, but Wing Commander is why I'm here, right? Those are the games that I played when I was a kid. I'm super excited to hear when we're just going to get our hands on it and when we get to actually play it. These little pre-things or whatever, I still believe it should be a 2027 release to kind of avoid any potential pitfalls from GTA. What about you? Let me know what you guys think. And that'll do it. So crazy week this week. It probably shows in my lack of shaving and haircut. But there's, a lot to kind of look forward to after this week, specifically Squadron 42 stuff and what's going to happen with 4.9 and instancing, because that's something I'm very much looking forward to, is just like, what does instancing look like in Star Citizen? And so that'll do it, guys. Leave a like. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about anything we discussed and anything we might have missed, and subscribe if you enjoy Week in Review and you haven't yet. And I will catch you guys all next week.